The Bible doesn't address free will. There is no mention of free will in the scriptures. It seems that humans are the only ones that assume that God gave us free will. And therefore, they're also making assumptions on the reasons why God may have given us free will. I've heard many of them. One of them is that God didn't want us to be robots. I guess there were robots in the biblical times. Okay, in all seriousness, I get it. God didn't want his creation to not have any choice and to tell them exactly what to do. So he gave them choices. He gave them the option to do good, to do evil, to worship him, to not worship him. There's another claim I have heard, and is that God has no choice but to send somebody to hell. Does this mean that God himself has no free will? Like, does he actually not have a choice? If the reason for him not having a choice is that he cannot break his promise or go back on his word, then that means that he does not have the free will to choose between good or bad. He can only choose good. Although one could argue that God has certainly chosen bad or evil, whatever you may want to call it, in many parts of the Bible. In fact, he allowed Satan to take over and wreak havoc in somebody's life in the book of Job. In this story, God allows Satan to take everything from Job. All the animals that provide him with a living, he takes all of his children's, all of his possessions, and all of this in order to prove that Job worshipped God just because he loved him. How selfish is that? But the question of whether God himself has free will leads us to the next question. Is there free will in heaven? Do humans have free will in heaven? And the answer seems to be a clear no. Hear me out. If there is no sin and no temptation, then that means that there is no choice but to choose good, because that's the only option that you're being given. And let me remind you that most types of sex and most of the things that make your dopamine neurotransmitters fire up are probably considered a sin up in heaven. So have fun in the medium place, drinking that glass of lukewarm wine. I have to say that the descriptions of heaven in the book of Revelation are frightening. I dare you to read them if you haven't. Angels with eyes all over them, like literally under their wings, all over their body. People constantly worshiping God, which leads me to believe that heaven is just a world where all you do is constantly worship God. Also, if there is no suffering in heaven, that means that you have to completely forget about the people that you loved here on earth who didn't make it to heaven. What if that was your partner, your children, your parents? Does that mean that they will be erased from your memory, or that you will no longer care for them, and therefore, it won't cause you any more suffering to not be with them? What if you married two people on earth? One of them passed away, went to heaven, then the other one passes away, you pass away, whatever order that comes in. But what if you find yourself with two partners that you married up in heaven? What are you going to do? What are you supposed to do? How does this heavenly rule work? As for free will, God's alleged free will is conditional. God does not give humans unconditional love. And God that says, you have free will to do good or evil. You have free will to worship me or not worship me. But if you do evil, or if you do not worship me, then you're going to burn in a fiery hell for all of eternity. That God is setting conditions to your love and your worship. Therefore, it isn't free. It has a cost attached to it. Free will isn't free. God's love is conditional. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, there are so many interpretations of the Bible. There are over 400 different English translations only for the Bible. This wording changes from message to message, from one Bible to the next. And this is more than likely why there are over 45,000 different Christian denominations all over the world, because everybody wants to have a different interpretation. Maybe it's time you analyze the Bible with some critical thinking. Until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe.